Welcome to Alpha Wolf Capital. I'm Tim, and I want to personally thank you for stopping by. Between the OTC, New York Stock Exchange, and NASDAQ, there are over 22,000 companies traded publicly. I feel that small businesses are the backbone of America. This channel is designed to help small companies, both public and private, gain exposure with potential consumers, investors, even partners. Take, for example, today's guest, Allan Evans from Unusual Machines. Serving a rapidly changing industry, Unusual Machines primarily serves the American drone industry by building and selling drone components. The American Securities Drone Act and conflicts like the one in Ukraine are creating significant demand for those components. Unusual Machines is positioned to fill that need, but I'll let Allan tell you more about that in just a moment. It's important to understand that this is not a paid-for promotion. I do not collect compensation for the interviews that I do here. The purpose of this channel is to find companies that have identified big problems and have found solutions to those problems. There's a thing called impact investing. It's tied to environmental, social, and governance. There are amazing companies out there addressing real problems. And unfortunately, no one knows about those companies because they're too small. I am asking you to listen to these interviews and fully comprehend what it is that they are trying to accomplish. And if it resonates with you, help the company spread the word. Help them as a potential investor or a brand ambassador. The goal here is to solve problems that humanity has and have a positive impact on humanity. You can either choose to be part of that goal, or you can choose to take no action. It's entirely up to you, but that is the purpose of this channel. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. I recommend highly that before buying any security, you speak to a financial advisor and do your own due diligence. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Capital coming at you with a follow-up to one of my favorite stories in an exciting space that is just, in my view, probably in the first or second inning. But Allan Evans from Unusual Machines. Allan, thanks for coming in, man. I know you're busy, but you got some exciting things going on. You got qualified with the Blue. What is it? UAS.
Yeah, the framework with the DIU that happened. So appreciate it, Tim. It's always fun. I guess first things first. When we first had a conversation, we said, "Hey, look, we're going to try to start to build these drone parts, and we have this hypothesis that there's market demand for it." Outside of our retail business, which is still doing great, and we're coming into holiday, but we were trying to do this new business thing. And a little more than a month ago, we launched that first product, the flight controller, and we got through and we got it approved by the DIU, which is an audit and all this other stuff, cybersecurity, everything. They said, yeah, okay. And then within the first week, we got orders for 7,000 of them before we started shipping samples. So when I could tell you that before it shipped, when you have an idea on a new segment or a new approach or trying to do an expansion, you're just sweating bullets because you're pretty sure you're wrong. You just don't know how far off you are and like how you got a nudge to find that fit. And in this case, I think the market feedback for what is, the very start of a thing has sort of shown that there is at least some market gap there. Is it as big as we expect? We won't know for a while, but.
Hey there, folks. I want to tell you about a new app that I am very excited about. If you want to up your investing game with Wall Street wisdom, stay informed, save time, and gain an edge, then you're going to want to check out this app, STOCKPICK. You can discover pro tips from top investors and expert curated financial news, all in quick video short form clips. I've been using this app and I got to tell you, I love it. I am extremely impressed with the quality of the content. It keeps me informed, and I have to tell you, I've used all kinds of comparable services out there. This one is priced at 79 US. It is a steal of a deal. And right now, on top of that, you can get an additional 25% off. I'm telling you, folks, I think you're going to love this app. Go to the description of this video and find the link. Make sure you use my code to get that 25% off.
Definitely, I haven't seen that level of interest in a new thing very often in my career doing hardware. So it's really encouraging, and we have a roadmap of products in the category we're working on, and we'll try to get approved, and we're shipping those units now, and that part's been good.
Yeah, so very methodical approach, right? I mean, you knew what you were shooting for. You wanted that approval, that blue, right? You wanted that. I mean, that was all part of the plan.
Yeah, we set out. If you go way back, and if people want to go watch the old interviews and see more of me and you, which long story short, yes, it was all part of the plan from the beginning. And our hypothesis is that, hey, you need an external entity to audit you to say, yeah, it is good, it meets the requirements, because in this world of self-certification, there's a lot of noise. So that external party validation is great, and that validation simplifies the procurement process. But a lot of people in the US, at least, are like, oh, technology is different than manufacturing and supply chain, and reliability and sort of the procurement to people that have government restrictions is really important. So it looks like our market assumptions there were accurate, and we're mostly on time with our execution. So yeah,
So
again,
I want to add,
sleepless nights
I want to add,
sleepless nights
I want
before.
to add something to the on time thing, because I have felt since I met you that you were in the right place at the right time. And recently I went to a drone show here in Vegas, and there were a couple of observations that I had right off the bat. Then I was talking to different folks at the drone show and asking about their customers. And one of the consistent themes that I heard was that a lot of their customers are not waiting until 2026, when China drones will no longer be able to be used for infrastructure and stuff like that, right? Which tells me that I mean, the need is there, not 2026. It's coming actually sooner than that.
Yeah, we look at it as from right now over about the next 18 months, and those companies going to sell those products right now, they'll scale up their supply chain, and that's where we as a components provider hope to show up and help them, also separate from China with the supply chain. They have a little more time on that, but it puts us in the window where trying to work with them and do that stuff now, it's pretty much the right time, and we're pretty excited about it. And really, we do the boring stuff. The drone companies that are out there are super cool. They have all these great features. They're solving these amazing problems. They're doing awesome software. So we joke that, everybody out there is doing their own version of Tesla, and it's awesome. We're just trying to be Goodyear. They all need tires, and tires are boring. They're low margin, but at the end of the day, they're still all going to need tires, and most of that material comes out of China right now. And those companies are great. Like the companies that provide it out of China, they do a really good job at a really reasonable price. And for us to start to do it not in China, we're not competing with other companies. We're competing with that resource out of China, because let's say you went and bought a drone from one of those companies at the drone show. They're selling it to you for a certain thing, knowing that their supply chain costs are this. We can't come in and suddenly raise their costs by 4x, because it ruins their business model. So we're really just trying to, like, our principal competitors are those Chinese companies, and we need to onshore, but in a way that's sensitive to the drone companies that are selling to you, the customer, you know?
Right.
And we're seeing that. So the thing that I talked about, the flight controller, we priced it at the same price as the Chinese competitive stuff. So we were able to do that and hit price parity and see that work. And that's the really exciting part is people pretend that price doesn't matter. Price matters.
Of course, price matters. I mean, it's funny that you say that because, you know, I'm not going to get political here, but just Trump's tariffs on, you know, if you throw 100% tariff on a Chinese made product, then, you know, that is going to raise the price, which actually could wind up helping you at some point because then it maybe increases your margins, even though you're attacking the market at the same price as what they're selling it. If their price to get it into this country goes up, then that gives you more cushion, right? To maybe expand your margins a little bit.
Yeah, we wouldn't expand our margins. What it does is it gives us a lot more market share.
Right.
It makes us a more compelling provider because we don't want to count on regulatory barriers for the long term. Like temporary regulatory barriers let us get market share, see scale, build the customer relationships. But even if there was 100% tariff, our ethos as a company is to know who we're ultimately competing with and be competitive. You know, I think you're seeing some of that margin taking with some of the defense company stuff right now. And we're just of the opinion that ultimately we're competing with some of the Chinese producers that are great. And if we just don't bother to build, like, we don't want to build a business where the being profitable or our cash flow is dependent on these temporary things. If we just go right after it and build a company that can win in a straight up fight, then these regulatory things will let us just grab huge amounts of market share quickly, and our customers will appreciate that in the long term.
Yeah, I get it. You know, Allan, I love your approach, man. So we're going to talk about some really crazy shit you've done recently, which is the S1.
Yeah. So let's go right into the land of confusing. You're a jerk. I love you. Right after we started launching the flight controller, so we're now getting into components business. You know, we had a little bit of a challenge because Red Cat owns such a huge part of us at the point. And we look like a subsidiary, and it's very hard to be a parts provider to all these different companies if you're a subsidiary of a drone company. Like, obviously, I think Red Cat's great. I was there a long time. I'm a large shareholder. Go. But our investors, after that happened, said, hey, okay, we can structure a win-win-win. You know, Red Cat was open to selling their position. Internal investors bought their position. Okay, great. So now we're fully independent. So it's easier to go work with the Skydios or the Brink drones or the AeroVironments as a parts provider. So that was the first thing that occurred. And then we set up some interesting things there shortly thereafter. We converted $1 million of that debt into equity above market at, like, I think $1.59 at the time. We had 1x warrant coverage at $1.99, and the rest of the debt, the other $3 million, converts at $1.99. Okay, so that's one piece. The other thing we did very recently is we filed an S1 registering all those underlying shares. So when Red Cat sold it, it had to be repacked up into preferred with 99 blockers because it was in the interest of the financial entities, et cetera. So all that would have been 144 eligible anyway. So we put out an S1 for a lot of shares. Most of them were already out there. And then enough shares to cover the warrants and the debt at $1.99. So it's all out there that if we're a little bit above $2 a share and we convert everything, we raise another year's worth of burn because we're only burning 500K a quarter. We convert all the debt and it's a clean company with a total of about 13.5 million shares. And that's all we have registered. So there was no raise. We were more trying to broadcast to everyone, hey, look, as we staircase our way through growth, this is what it looks like, rather than like, a surprise dirty financing where you feel like you get kicked right in the shin.
Yeah.
And we're trying to avoid that. So we're trying to say, hey, look, it's all out there.
This is unprecedented, Alan. I mean, people probably don't know how to react to that.
Yeah. I mean, it is, I get a lot of confusion or a lot of like dilution, and you're like, oh, hold on. It's all out there. Like when the company does good enough, we've structured it above market. We've shown what we can do. These get, as part of it, there's no short clauses signed as part of the registration. Like this is a growth story. And if you
So
look,
let's walk through this real quick. If your stock price goes to 250,
yeah,
what happens at
it's
250?
not what I would expect would happen if we're there for a little while.
Yeah.
That at a certain point, at 3, we can force the warrants to be exercised, and the deck can convert at $1.99. So at 250, in the likely scenario, we raise the money because they're not cashless. So we bring in about $1.5 million. Okay, that's fuel, and all the debt goes away. And so we have a perfectly clean cap table. We don't have any concentrated shareholders in terms of voting power. We're not a subsidiary to anyone. And we keep going forward with business operations. All with a total of 13.5 million shares out there with no additional registration sitting on top of it to, create problems. So we're just trying to say to everybody, hey, look, if you believe in what we're doing, here's how we can go faster and harder, and then hopefully considerately staircase it up to realize the most value for shareholders.
I love that. I mean, that is what I call transparency. It's laid out there in front of you, and this is a well thought out strategy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a CEO, I got 2 different jobs. One is we got to be sure operationally we do the things necessary to create a TAM and scale into the TAM. And so if you look, we're starting to see those results with the new components business. Like not even first inning, like we just threw out the ceremonial pitch. The game's about to start. And then on the other side, I think you can screw it all up by screwing up the cap table. And so we're just trying to say, hey, look, we realize we have pretty low burn, so we're not that desperate. But with a little extra capital, we can go do new things faster and actually expand the TAM and really drive upside.
You have 7,000. Let me ask you, what were you thinking? I mean, what would have been your rosy picture of orders? What would you have liked to have seen? I don't think you would expected 7,000 in the first week.
No, I would have expected 100, because I would have expected people to place the orders, to test them, to do evaluation, right? And
Yeah.
to then go through that, and then to see that grow 6 to 8 weeks in. Not such a need that people were willing to already start to place substantial orders without going through, the long process of sort of qualifying the new parts. It just shows that there's a really big gap
So
out there.
things that it could be a challenge, maybe a bigger challenge than you anticipated, was growth consumes capital, right? I mean, if
A
you
little bit. We're okay there.
yeah, but if you're anticipating 100 and you get 7,000, right? Those are that.
Oh, we take deposits. We don't finance, like working capital is financed by customers. Customer money is great, and that's how people are serious about it, right? You don't just speculatively do it. But what I would say is we're getting requests for things that could use some capex. People are like, oh, can you do batteries? Can you do motors? We can. Each of those is $1 million to $2 million in capex. But if you think about it, those are TAM expansion. And now we're seeing customer requests for this stuff more fervently than we anticipated. So that's an example of where, okay, we get there, we can do something like this. Okay, we can go capex, and we can start to expand the TAM and provide more of the bill of materials for these customers that are desperate.
And
So
that's the
that's
key.
what we're hoping for. Yeah. Like they're desperate to not buy the stuff out of China. We're interested in solving it, but we can't go do a stupid round at $1 a share with like 3x warrant coverage to bring in a little money to go do it, because that's destructive to the cap table. So we're trying to broadcast here so people have the opportunity to grow with us. If you look, we have a multi-billion-dollar market opportunity, I think, in the next couple of years. But without a good relationship with our shareholders who don't feel like they're getting tricked and feel like they see that transparency, we're never going to be able to realize it.
So here's the beautiful thing. This is why I like this so much, because it shows, I think, a big mistake that's a lot of small cap, micro cap companies make is they always underestimate the amount of capital they're going to need to get to cash flow positive. And I don't think it's intentional. It's just that's the way it is, right? Especially if you have a new product that is going to require adoption, right? Especially if it's a new technology. I mean, you're really, no matter how obvious it is, I don't care what the benefits are, it's going to be a challenge to get people to stop doing what they've always done. And 13% of the population is, and I think this is probably being a little generous, is supposedly early adopters, right? And then it's like from to really become the standard, you got to get 70, 80% market share. So there's a big discrepancy there, and we're a herd mentality. The human beings, I mean, we've got to let somebody else be the guinea pig, and then once that process is over, then it becomes, FOMO, fear of missing out. We got to get involved here. That can take a very long time to get to that. But you, on the other hand, that's what's so exciting about this is you're getting it right out of the gate, right?
Well, we're a drop-in replacement. So everything you're saying is true. But it's like I flew on JetBlue. I fly on JetBlue regularly, and I'm a Coke Zero drinker. You know what? JetBlue doesn't carry Coke products. So yeah, it's Pepsi Max, right? Like, and what we are is all these companies drinking Coke, and Coke just got banned in terms of the Chinese products.
Right.
We're the only ones making Pepsi. So it's not that we have to go introduce a new thing. We're directly a substitute good at the same price with availability. And so that's the sort of uptake we're seeing, which is fascinating, because that's what that early launch told us, is like, oh yeah. And if you're on the other side and you need a thing or you're used to a thing, the substitute good can gain market share real fast if the primary good is not there.
Right. Super exciting model. But here's the even the better part of this is the fact that you are being as transparent as you are being, because a lot of the small cap, micro cap companies, you find, how does the owner of the company, which is the shareholders, find out about the financing that they just did? They don't find out until it gets published, and the shareholders had nothing to do with deciding whether or not that made sense to do that financing, right? Which is pretty sad. You are laying it out there and saying, look, this is our path to financing. We're not going to do some dirty deal. This is how we want to structure the cap table.
Now it's high risk, right? Like, because if we're not supported in that, we got to run tighter. We got to run closer to the wall. The whole team, we're in it for the big win, the equity win. And that's where we're aligned with shareholders. You can go way back to early on. I reduced my salary to take equity, right? And we're not here to have good jobs. We like our jobs, but we're here to hit that multiple and really help the industry. And so I think what you see with some of these companies you see what a buddy of mine calls cookie jarring, where some of the senior staff will pay themselves nice salaries and the expenses are pretty high, and the company is a cookie jar rather than an equity vehicle with alignment. So I do think there are some companies where there's misalignment, but in our case, we're able to do it because we are aligned. And if there's not that confidence in what we're doing, then we got to do better operationally. We just got to grind. We got to figure it out to stay aligned with ownership.
So this is why it's so important to me for people to get to know who's leading the charge, right? I mean, this conversations like this that are going to make me feel way more comfortable as a shareholder, because I recognize that number one, you appreciate your shareholders. I mean,
Very much so.
that is it's amazing how many people or CEOs don't really appreciate their shareholders, right? Retail investors can ask stupid questions, and but the bottom line is they are still ponying up their money to invest in you, which I think is huge, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a blue collar Michigan kid originally. My dad was a teacher, my mom was a nurse. So when you think about it, regardless of the amount of money that goes in, and of course, bigger money and institutional money really enables stuff. So but when you look at retail investors or anyone, money's precious, and it's a resource that is required to collectively achieve these things. And somebody went and worked for it, or is choosing to support what we're doing rather than something else. That's an allocation, and whether it's 10 shares, 100 shares, 1,000 shares, a million shares, the decisions that people have to make with what resources they have, those are real decisions. Those are real choices. We make no promises about making anybody a return in any time frame, but we are committed to taking this really big swing and to trying to communicate what we're doing as part of that swing so people can make informed decisions. And if they choose to sell our stock, then they're doing it in an informed way, and that's something that is okay. Like, then we're going to use that as fuel to prove them wrong. We want them to come back and be like, "Oh, I had it at a $1.50. What'd I do?" Like, I'm willing to use a little rage fuel once in a while. Like, but really, we want people to be able to make informed decisions and not be too uncertain about what we're going to do or how.
Yeah, it's to me, you were the first CEO ever to say to me or to the audience, "Go buy one share."
I still believe it. Pay attention. That's all.
I love that, because you know what? I mean, yeah, go spend $1.54, buy one share, and follow what's happening with this company, right?
Yeah. Like, people are making decisions with money. If you need to develop trust in what is asymmetric communication, or you need to come to understand what we're doing to decide what to do, great. Spend the time. We're pretty communicative, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you to just jump in. I think everybody's got to make those decisions, and we're just happy to have people start to listen to the story so they can start to trust us, because I think if you pay attention and listen, we're pretty consistent, and we're pretty good about saying when we're wrong or when we don't know. And I think those are, a lot of people feel pressure to have an answer right now. I feel more like everybody who's in is taking the journey with us. Like, why? We're pretty sure, but we'll tell you it's a guess. We'll tell you what we're going after. And, maybe we're right. So far, we've been right. Will we be wrong? Hopefully not, but, we'll adjust.
Yeah, how many people are there in the United States? Do you know?
350 million, give or take.
350 million. So I mean, if like everybody in America went and bought one share,
I would have way too many phone calls. I could just imagine. I could imagine the IR headache. So I'd rather 1 out of 100 people buy 100 shares. It's just, and then I could tell you we'd need to do a raise to hire a full-time person to answer the phone because.
Yeah, where do you think the share price would be at that point? Right? I mean, 350. How many shares fully diluted are there?
Right now, about 10 and a half.
Yeah.
And if we convert all the stuff I was talking about before, like 13 and a half.
13 and a half.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
350 million people buying one share would where do you think that would be?
It'd probably skyrocket because of the social memes and then me on the news and people super confused.
That would be
But
something.
we'd have changed the supply chain for the American drone ecosystem at the same time. So if Americans bought a company trying to bring value to America, it reminds me of Tesla actually in the early days. Like Tesla, from a pure financial standpoint, was wildly overvalued for years and years and years. But it was people saying, "Hey, look, we believe," and that belief became self-fulfilling. And then a lot of people who believed to help support that self-fulfilling belief helped actually achieve what is the electric vehicle revolution and sort of this amazing outcome. And I honestly think shareholders and that belief and that participation really helped drive that outcome. And so I think that's
Agree.
Yeah, so we see the same opportunity.
Right? Impact investing is what? It is not just impacting your portfolio. It is maybe whatever the company does provides it is better for the environment. Maybe it makes a job site safer. Maybe it cures cancer. There's all kinds of things that little companies are trying to do to solve big problems in the world. And we've got the big companies, we've got the Microsofts and the NVIDIAs but guess what? Humanity's got a whole shitload of problems, and they always will. But there are companies out there that are trying to solve those problems. Not everybody knows about them because they're small companies, but that's how you become the next NVIDIA. That's how you become the next Tesla, and you just nailed it, is that when people believe, here's a guy that took on the big three, and he doesn't run any ads.
Nope.
That is the most incredible thing. When you think about it, holy cow. The early adopters and the passionate people that went and bought the cars, they helped Elon get to where he is at without question, right? And that model can work for I believe, any company that could provide a better something that benefits humanity, right?
Yeah, I'd even say just benefits the impact investors. I mean, if you look at what we're doing, we're very, very committed to adding in US and NDAA compliant supply chains for drones. Drones are the future. Reducing the cost of the supply chain, reduce the cost of drones will help with the proliferation of drones. I think part of what made them so effective over other places is this commitment to carrying the mission forward all the way to the end. And we have the commitment to carry the mission forward all the way to the end. So, we're not about to go change what we're doing, right? Like as we scale in, we just want to do more and more of it and I don't think we're missing in that. So if you say, hey, look, yeah, I think setting up a redundant supply chain that doesn't have dependence on China, if that's important to somebody, that's what we're doing for what we see as a critical technology segment. If people believe in that and they want to own a chunk of what we're doing and they buy in as an impact investor, then it will become self-fulfilling and help this snowball. And, that's part of where it's like buy one share, listen to us, hear that it doesn't change, hear how we interact, You'll see that we try to be very thoughtful about the capital we have. Like, we don't spend a lot of money on nonsense. We try to put it all to work to achieve what we're trying to do. And in that way, if we build trust with people, then they know if they care about what we're doing and they start to, apply their resources to what we're doing, that we want to be good stewards of that trust. And I think that's in some ways, because of all this, we're like a little crazy, this is a very different modality of operation. It's harder. Like, it's much easier just to go, I do something a little messy and put a bunch of cash in the bank and be like, salary for years. So I think we take a risk in some ways in doing it, but the same approach provides just a much higher ceiling for everyone, rather than de-risking it for us personally.
So let me ask you, Allan, do you feel as though, I mean, I know right now you're just focused on swapping out part for part, right? But I'm sure in your head there's room for innovation too, right? I mean, who correct me if I'm wrong, but FPV, you guys were like kind of the first ones there, right?
We were part of the very early group, absolutely, and drove a lot of the changes there. So, yeah. And I mean, there's room for innovation. I have a PhD in engineering. I'm trying very hard not to innovate, so let's not go down any rabbit holes. But I do really think there's this shorter term window where scaling manufacturing, hitting price and hitting quality that are necessary. We know what people already need, and we can make small changes and we do small improvements, but it's much more getting any kind of viable replacement in people's hands. And then if we're trusted to do that and we execute that, we'll have the room to innovate the supply chain past that for our customers. And that's the long-term thing that's the most exciting to me. But in the short term, we have to do what our customers need, not what we want to do. And what they need is a viable replacement as quickly as possible at a competitive price with really high quality.
And that is the plan. I mean, that is the ultimate goal, right? Is to build that trust as a dependable supplier, right? And then once you are like, your customers are like, I freaking love Unusual Machines because they come through for me every single time, right? When you come out with that new product, there's going to be no question as to whether or not the quality's there or the service is there. It's already been proven, right? That is exciting. I mean, that's because if you start thinking in those ways, you realize that how big this thing can get.
Huge, because in any of these hardware industries tends to fall down to like a duopoly, and nobody can come in. So look, you either have Apple or Android. Microsoft spent billions of dollars on the phone. Amazon spent billions of dollars on a phone. Facebook spent, but no, the duopoly is there. They're established. They're trusted. People are used to them. You look at ride sharing. It's just Uber and Lyft. There were a whole lot of them in the early days. There's an opportunity where there's no one right now to do this, and there's also this advantage to all the drone producers because they're not competing over their motors or their batteries, right? They're competing on the customer segments, on the offerings, on the software. And so we actually benefit all our customers by working with everyone, because then we have higher quality, we have lower costs, we have bigger volumes, we have more offerings. And I really think that's where what we're really focused on and is this trust. It's customer trust, it's shareholder trust, and trust takes time. It takes this, and it takes being consistent, and so we're in the early phases because we're young. But I do think that focus on trust, which we care about, comes through in some of the transparency. It's a faster way to build trust.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think you're going to be a case study, man. I really do, because this is the way it should be done. I mean, this is how it should be done. And it's an exciting industry. It's like you said, you threw out the first pitch. The game's just starting, right? I mean,
It's just starting.
It's just starting, and it's going to be huge. It's going to be massive. If we would have gone back before Ukraine, we never would be even. We didn't realize before Ukraine just how big and impactful this industry can be. That's in war, and that's not exactly the best thing.
No, I agree with you and disagree with you. I think people who knew and were going that way, or you wouldn't see the massive financing Skydio had, or the size of DJI, or, you know, I was at Red Cat before the Ukraine war and we were already working on teal stuff. I would say war can often cause accelerations of technologies, but so did the pandemic. Like these really chaotic, unfortunate events often cause adaptation that then comes forward. A couple of examples: if you look at World War II, Eisenhower came back and it was they built the freeways based on the Autobahn, like very quickly. The freeway system now that we get a 4-hour delivery, it's great. Or World War II was the transition from not flying everywhere to like the amazing aerospace industry we had in 1970, where everybody was on a plane. And so I do think these conflicts have acted as a catalyst that has surprisingly accelerated this industry now to, you know, breakneck speeds.
Right.
But not that it won't affect everybody's lives. I think to think of it as constrained to the DoD is to miss the whole history of how innovations that first showed up in conflict actually came to impact our everyday lives, and very quickly.
Right. And I think there are going to be a lot of use cases that we didn't plan for or didn't think about that are going to be massive for this. I think this industry.
You know, one of my favorite, just as an example, there are definitely companies out there using drones to power wash skyscrapers instead of having people take the risk going in. Like, it's awesome. They do it faster, safer, cheaper, and you're like, what? You know, people get caught up on delivery and stuff, but I think there's a ton of like power washing buildings, applications that
putting out fires with the fire hose, right? I mean, there are so many things, just situational awareness, and I mean, there are a lot of things that you know, organs, right? I mean, there's healthcare. There are so many practical applications that it starts to boggle your mind, right?
yeah, it's cool.
It's so cool. It's so cool. And they're just fun to fly. If I actually could figure out how to fly without crashing and burning, and actually the drone that I had, I don't even know where it is anymore because it just went away into somebody's backyard.
You know, the simulators and stuff are making that a lot easier. I think for this holiday, you know, we might have some things to help you out. So reach out here in a month or two. Get you a Christmas present. You'll know how to fly after that.
Allan, anything else that you want to share with people while you've got their attention?
Yeah, no, first, I appreciate it. You know, it's unusual. And then what I would say is when you look at what we're doing, a lot of it's boring, but it's boring because it's working. And so people are always like, oh, what's a catalyst? What's a big event? We're not a bio stock. There's not like FDA approval as a thing. I think just follow along and you'll see this steady as she goes, regular pattern of communication, trying to broadcast these things, you know, and that's really how you build trust is, you know, steadiness and rather, so I could sit here and be like, oh, there are these major catalysts, whatever. We're just going to keep doing our job and it's working. So I can give people the confidence that it's working, and if it doesn't, we'll figure out what to do.
I do want to bring up kind of something. So what could be a catalyst for you? And I'm just gonna go back to that tie-in of Red Cat, right?
Uh-huh.
So I I know that Red Cat is like at this moment in time where they could potentially become a supplier to the U.S. Army in a significant way.
Yeah.
Um, and nobody knows what the size of that contract would be, but I think if you just go back to what the first contract of the S was SRR or
SRR, short range reconnaissance.
yeah, sure, SRR. If you go back to the first order, I think that was a 500 million, and
Uh-huh.
that was before Ukraine.
Uh-huh.
Now you look at Ukraine and all the different applications that have then come forth, you have to anticipate that maybe that could be a pretty sizable contract.
It definitely could.
Yeah. And then if they get that contract, aren't you a supplier to them for some stuff?
We're part of the partnership with the Fang drones. I was the COO there. And then I think the other side is we have a lot of the same shareholders. So not only could it be that a company we have a formal partnership with has more business for us to figure out how to do together, which would be great. They got to go if it makes business sense, but also, we have a lot of the same shareholders. And if they get a win, they're more likely to wonder where they can get another win. And you tend to bet on a horse that won you the last race. So
Yeah.
I think would I love a halo effect? Yes. Can I guarantee it? No. But I would be surprised if there wasn't one.
Right. Right. So I
Yeah.
mean that is one catalyst that I just
Sure. Sure. If you want to swing trade our stock, sure.
no, and
If somebody's going to sell all but one share. Hold that last share. Still pay attention.
yeah, I don't think you listen, anybody that has I can tell you this. It's a brand new company. There's not a lot of historical data with the chart, and that could create problems for some people. But just remember this: that when this thing goes and it takes out its all-time high, that's blue sky. That means this baby can soar for a long time. No pun intended.
I like it anyway.
But it can soar for a long time. It's in a growth industry. The Nvidias of the world right now, those are awesome. Nobody's going to argue. Do I think they have crazy valuations right now? I do. I think they're overvalued. I think that this is the kind of company that could be the next Nvidia type play. I mean, that's just. I'm not being. I know it's because oh, this guy says it. Listen, I really truly believe that, right? If this company is done right, the sky is the limit.
Yeah, I think if you look at other mature industries, and we're betting on the drone industry maturing, Bosch is a supplier in the automotive industry. They're tens of billions of dollars market cap. Raytheon is a supplier in the aerospace industry. I think they're hundreds of billions of dollars market cap. The primary suppliers in mature logistics industries are giant companies. And so I would say that, we're in the process of finding out who even are the primary companies, let alone the primary suppliers in the emerging autonomous industry in the US. And I think it'll be the same size as automotive and aerospace. And I think if you look at how quickly they came on from introduction, you're only looking at a 20 to 30-year time horizon. And you're looking at somebody who, expects to survive for that entire time horizon. So there might even be continuity in leadership if it works, which is a positive.
That's another valid point, Allan. I love talking to you, man.
Well, I mean, that's what got NVIDIA there. If you look, they started in the early 90s. They did the GeForce is an early graphics card. Nobody heard about them. Gamers were all in, you know, and they kept growing with the industry on a different architecture, which is the GPU architecture, which came to prevalence much later. Great. You know, that it's not, the future is so much bigger in this industry than people expect because it is automotive or it is aerospace. I mean, it's not going to be tomorrow. It's going to be every year will be a bigger year, you know, just like the chip industry has been.
So I will, one other observation, and then we'll cut this thing. But when I went to that drone convention, one of the observations that I had was that there were not as many companies there this year as there were the year before. So we're in an environment right now with small cap, micro caps, where it's difficult to get capital. You know, unless you have something that is a real differentiator, a lot of the companies were just resellers, right? I mean, that's what they were. I believe that there's consolidation that's happening now. Now, if we can think forward, right now you are a hardware play, but as we go through this transition, right? And if your strategy to grow in a stair-step fashion, and you're supported by your shareholders to the plan, eventually I could see where, I mean, what is your background again? It's AR, VR?
Yeah, it's electrical engineering.
Yeah.
It came out of the AR VR industry originally. Yeah.
So, I mean, are you familiar with software at all?
You know, what I think is as we build customer trust, solve their problems, that we'll have the opportunity, just like I said, with any sort of capital or when we're at the right size, to do things to expand our TAM and to
Right.
solve more of the problems in the industry. Whether that's software solutions, additional hardware solutions, accessories, you know, reaching out past the US and maybe being more of a global provider. All those are very possible as long as we make sure to sort of continue to solve the problems at the right time and not, you know, people can get over their skis. You see that a lot. And as long as we don't get over our skis, I think we'll always find those value opportunities to solve problems.
Yeah. All right, Allan Evans from Unusual Machines, UMAC is the ticker symbol. Go out and buy one share. I think I can tell people to go buy one share, right?
You can tell them whatever you want. It's your channel. I can't.
Actually, if you don't have these guys on your radar, go to their website and sign up for investor alerts. That way, every time they come out with a new press release, it goes right to your email and you can follow what is happening with the company. Allan, I can't wait until we talk next time. Thanks for coming in, man.
Appreciate it, Tim. Have a great day.
All right.
Thank
Hold on
you
one
for tuning
second.
in to another CEO interview here at Alpha Wolf Capital. Today we had Allan Evans from Unusual Machines, ticker symbol UMAC. Hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you did, do us a favor, give us a like. How about giving us a share? And while you're at it, make sure you smash that subscribe button. All of those things are very important to us here at Alpha Wolf Capital, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Capital wishes you the very best of success.